The Mojave is a place filled with countless oddities and fascinating stories made up of even more fascinating and mysterious characters. But what if I told you that an NPC within the game trumped almost all of these, yet contributes nothing to the overall story itself? In fact, this NPC is not even able to speak or share their tales with the courier, because when you find them, they're already dead. So who is this? What's their story and how did they get where they did? Most importantly, how did they come into possession of several Sierra Madre chips and be the only NPC in the base game to have these on hand? Join me as we begin again and discover the tale of the impossible Wastelander. Our story begins between Nipton and the NCR's Mojave outpost, south of the Jackal Gang hideout. Making our way through the desert, we stumble upon a rad scorpion burrow. After entering, we are greeted by the corpse of a Wastelander, but not the Wastelander we are looking for. Progressing down the cave, we come to a large opening that reveals the cavernous home to the formidable Rad Scorpion Queen. Making quick work of these bugs, we can explore this space and find more dead bodies. How these people got here and who they are, we'll never know. But it is this one specific Wastelander towards the middle back of the cavern that catches our attention, at least in regard to their inventory. Search their body and you'll find something quite out of place. Yes, you see it right on your screen. This NPC is in possession of Sierra Madre chips. Now you may wonder what's the big deal, but this is actually quite interesting given that these chips can only be found within the Sierra Madre, more specifically for the player within the Dead Money DLC. These are not supposed to be in the base game, and especially not in the inventory of a random Wastelander who has no significance to us or the story at all. Now I should clarify that I wasn't the first person to find this. It was actually my friend Wes who recently discovered this on a recent run of his. After hearing it from him, I needed to look into this myself. My mind instantly started racing with the possibilities of who this is and how they could have come into possession of these chips. Did they visit the Sierra Madre? If so, how did they escape? Did they encounter Father Elijah? Did they just steal these from someone or somewhere other than the Sierra Madre? To try and find answers to these questions, we first need to clarify some things. Let's start with the potential elephant in the room for some, and that is Dead Money and the Sierra Madre location itself.
You've heard of the Sierra Madre Casino. We all have. The legend, the curses, foolishness about it lying in the middle of the city of the dead, buried beneath a blood-red cloud. A bright, shining monument luring treasure hunters to their doom. The world's most famous stars and entertainers were invited to its grand opening. An invitation was a sign of exclusiveness. It's still out there, in the wastes, preserved, just waiting for someone to crack it open. But getting to it, that's not the hard part. It's letting go.
Dead Money was the first of the 4 story-driven add-ons produced by Obsidian for New Vegas. It is arguably the most controversial of the bunch, as it typically garners either love or hate. There seems to be no in-between, and this is understandable, as anyone who has played through this DLC knows how difficult and unforgiving it can be. No man wants to experience the incredible fear and trembling that comes with wandering through the Sierra Madre Villa, wondering if the next corner you take will have a gang of psychotic hazmat suit-wearing men waiting for you, or toxic gas, all while having to listen to this creepy ambiance you are hearing now. However, where this DLC really makes up for the potential frustration from gameplay is its incredible story. If you aren't familiar with it, let me at least give you the basics. First, make sure you kill this guy. As we have already heard from Father Elijah, more on him in a second, the Sierra Madre is a place surrounded by mystery and intrigue throughout the waste. No one is really sure if it even exists, but the name at least floats around and can even be seen graffitied in various places throughout the Mojave. The courier finds their way to the Sierra Madre by following a mysterious radio broadcast to the abandoned Brotherhood of Steel bunker, which turns out to be a trap set by Father Elijah to bring us to the Sierra Madre. The former Brotherhood of Steel elder gone rogue, at the tail end of the Brotherhood's war with the NCR, has been playing a sick game of luring in treasure seekers and fellow Wastelanders to carry out his biddings. This is done by strapping explosive collars to the necks of his victims who have no choice but to comply or die. However, by the time we arrive, Father Elijah finds himself stuck in the casino after having a former team of slaves successfully get him in. Now, he needs the courier to open its doors and gain access to its vault. You see, Father Elijah sought out the Sierra Madre for its advanced technology. in the hopes of using it against the NCR and Mojave as a whole to take revenge for the defeat of the Brotherhood of Steel and ultimately start with a clean slate to form his own new world. He specifically sought after the Sierra Madre's advanced technology because of its origins at Big Mountain, where Frederick Sinclair, the chief architect and financer of the Sierra Madre, had made a deal with the scientists of Big Mountain to import holograms and matter recombinators into his resort. Sinclair's goal, aside from being a playground for the world's elite, was to build a place where anyone could reverse their fortunes and begin again. Immense amounts of money and preparation were put into the resort to ensure its completion before the impending nuclear holocaust, something Sinclair anticipated. With impending doom in mind, Sinclair made sure that the Sierra Madre would also function as a vault, with an entire security apparatus provided from Big Mountain's tech. Things, however, did not turn out as planned. Perhaps the most fascinating and ironic part about this place is that it never even opened. On October 23, 2077, the Sierra Madre intended to have its grand opening gala event, but when the bombs dropped that same day, everything changed. The Sierra Madre went on lockdown, and its guests were prevented from leaving, as Sinclair's high-end security setup did its job and sealed them inside. To make matters worse, the security holograms interpreted the guests as intruders and slaughtered everyone, turning it into a tomb. For the rest of the resort, those still outside soon succumbed to the Red Cloud, a mysterious and lethal substance that produced the dreaded ghost people. The Red Cloud also kept treasure hunters and intruders out, at least for the most part, and in a way preserved the Sierra Madre from decay. Now, the Red Cloud itself is a bit out of scope for this video, along with a good majority of the incredible lore found in this DLC. But for now, this should at least give us context as to what this place is, and also why someone, like our friend the Impossible Wastelander, may have sought it out. With tales of incredible treasures and great fortunes to be found at the Sierra Madre, it is not hard to imagine that some, if not many, Wastelanders had attempted to seek it out for themselves over the years. Coming back to our Wastelander friend in the burrow, let's take a look at some of the questions I posed in the beginning of this video and try to build a picture of what may have happened. First, where or how did he come into possession of these chips? Now, of course, it is possible that he simply stole them from someone or somewhere while out and about, or found them randomly, but I find this option hard to believe. As I stated earlier, Sierra Madre chips are not supposed to spawn in the base game, whether that be in a location within the Mojave or on a specific individual. If he did come across these just by chance or stole them, it likely wasn't anywhere near the Mojave. This leaves the Sierra Madre, or at least somewhere much closer in proximity to it, as the only place where he could have collected these chips. For the sake of this video, we are going to assume he really did visit the Sierra Madre. The next glaring question becomes, when did he visit? Specifically before or at the time of Father Elijah's stay. Given the track record we have of Elijah's victims having a net zero survival rate before the courier, it is extremely unlikely the Wastelander arrived when Elijah was present. To survive being captured or go unnoticed would be an incredible feat that I am not willing to give him credit for. So it is almost certain that the Wastelander would have visited before the arrival of the Rogue Elder. Once in the villa, it's easy to assume the Wastelander became aware of how bad of a place he was in. Whether it be the side effects of the Red Cloud or the ghost people, he probably realized it was a fool's errand to stay. So he likely grabbed what he could, some chips in this situation, and ran for the hills before becoming just another victim of the Madre. Given where we find him post-mortem, I believe he would have returned to the Mojave at some point and likely lived in or at least found himself in Nipton. Once Nipton became under the authority of the Legion, he and the others we find in the burrow fled, only to be cut off on the way to Prim by the Jackal gang members stationed on the highway. This would have driven them south towards the burrow, where perhaps they sought shelter. However, as we already saw, this is where they met their demise, buried forever with his treasure in the Mojave. So there you have it. That is my theory as to who this Wastelander is and how he came into possession of Sierra Madre chips. Well, that's actually not the end of it. There's a reason I have named this NPC the Impossible Wastelander. It's because he doesn't exist. Well, sort of. You see, the dead Wastelanders you find in the Rad Scorpion burrow are real, and will always be found there upon looking. But what most likely will not be present are the Sierra Madre chips. Remember my friend Wes? It is true that while on his recent run he did come across this specific Wastelander who did indeed have several Sierra Madre chips in his inventory. Perplexed by this, he texted me and another friend who loved New Vegas to let us know what he had found. Instantly, my mind started racing with the possibilities of who this could be and why the heck he has these chips. Throughout the day at work, I started to think how this could make for a really awesome video idea, and I began formulating the script in my head. Well, later in the week when I got on to see it for myself, My other friend I mentioned had already done so, and informed me with great disappointment that it wasn't in the inventory of the Wastelander when he checked. I loaded up New Vegas, and unfortunately it was the same for me. With picture proof to show it, Wes did indeed encounter this Wastelander with the chips, but we came to the conclusion that it was just an incredibly rare and random item spawn that occurred in his run. This conclusion is supported by other encounters players have had in the Rad Scorpion burrow, as seen by this post on Reddit, where the player enters the burrow and immediately is greeted with the same scenario Wes had experienced. Looking to the comments of this post, it seems that when the Sierra Madre chips are found in the base game, it only happens in the Rad Scorpion burrow. People seem to lean more into this being a bug rather than a potential random spawn that could occur normally in the game, and I think that is probably correct given my earlier statements on never finding the chips anywhere else in the base game. So despite not being an intentional placement by the devs and this Wastelander truly not having any real story or even a name, this still makes me think. Given all we discussed, it is fun to wonder who could have stumbled upon the Sierra Madre over the decades to behold its Art Deco beauty, but also its terrifying secrets and dangers. It's fitting in the Mojave to wish to begin again, strike it rich, gain more power than one could ever imagine. But as anyone who has visited will tell you, the Sierra Madre is no paradise, but rather a mirage. So the question is, will you let go?